Thank you guys for joining us here at the YouTube space at the second day of I.O. We are so excited to have you and talk about distribute. And basically when we talk about distribute, what we want to talk about is once you've designed and developed an amazing product, how do you get it out there? And I couldn't be more excited than to be joined by Aaron Grant, who's the co-founder of Filmic Labs, to talk about how he distributed an amazing new technology which is on the forefront of wearables. And after graduating Y Combinator and coming in all the way from Waterloo, we were so excited to have you here today, Aaron. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So again, my inner Star Wars fan could come out because I feel like what you're developing with your technology is like the Force. You're able to control things, not with your mind, but with the power of wearable technology and controlling what's in front of you around all devices. So can you give a little more detail about what exactly the Myo Armband is and how it came to be?
Yeah, so the Myo Armband is what we call a gesture control armband. And it's a slim band that you wear around your forearm, kind of like you'd wear a sweatband. And it has a couple different types of sensors in it that actually detect the motions and gestures you make with your hands and fingers. And we allow you to use that to control any of your technology, whether it's your laptop or your smart TV or your tablet. The possibilities are pretty much endless. The way it works is that there's a couple different types of sensors embedded in the armband. One of those is a motion sensor that tracks the position and orientation and movement of your arm. And we combine that with the proprietary muscle activity sensors we've developed, which actually detect the electrical signals that occur when you contract your muscles. So if I'm wearing a Myo Armband and I make a fist, just by reading the electrical impulses from my muscles, it can tell that my hand is making a fist or touching different fingers together. And so that's what the technology is.
Awesome. Aaron, tell me about what your favorite use case is. Like, is it, you guys put together a lot of materials, a lot of videos about you showing the Myo in action in the kitchen, a military soldier using it to control robots. What's your favorite, most mind-blowing application of your technology?
I mean, there's just so many different possibilities. It's tough to pick one as a favorite. One of the really interesting ones to us is being able to use this to control other wearable technology. So, as we see computing shifting from being purely, something that you do sitting in a chair at your desk to interacting with all these different devices with different form factors, and some have screens and some don't, and there's all this different stuff out there now. Using the Myo to be able to naturally interact with those devices in a way that makes sense is something that myself and everyone back at Filmic is super excited about.
Awesome. So let's rewind the clock. How long have you been around, and what was day one like? Like what was day one when you tried to develop this armband? What were the struggles that you got into? Let's talk about the early days of your process.
Sure. Yeah. So Filmic Labs has been around for about 2 years now, just over 2 years. It was founded by myself and 2 other graduates from the University of Waterloo, and we basically got together and decided that we wanted to build a company, do something together, and so started looking around for some things that we could work on. And we were actually thinking about this kind of new wave of wearable technology and new form factors of devices, and what the best way to control those and interact with those devices would be going forward. And that's kind of where the idea for the Myo was born. There are some camera-based gesture control solutions out there, and there's, as you can probably imagine, a lot of limitations with having to be in front of a camera all the time. And so we thought about how we could overcome those, and from that the Myo was born.
Awesome. So let's talk about, so you developed and designed the product. What were you thinking about in terms of getting it out there? Obviously it's something different. People aren't used to it. What did you do differently than most other apps or startups that are out there to get your technology in the hands of users?
Yeah, so one of our biggest challenges was that, if I walked up to someone on the street and told them that the Myo is a gesture control armband, they'd have no idea what I'm talking about. And it's a brand new technology. It's not a new version of something else that already exists. And so communicating to people, what the technology is, why you would want to use it, what it's good for is a difficult challenge. And we knew that going into it. So, in terms of getting it out there, we thought of all sorts of different things. Like Kickstarter was an obvious kind of potential avenue that we didn't exactly end up going down that route, but we really felt that it would come down to how well we could explain what the product is what it can do and why you would actually want to use it.
Of course. So I think so many startups struggle with that. They have an amazing product, and then when they try to get to explaining it, they do so many things. They're like, let's distill it to a 10-second pitch. Let's put together a PowerPoint presentation. But I want to talk about something that you did that just really, really amazed me. You guys put together this video that I checked this morning. You guys have over 3 million hits, and I think the thing about it, there's no cats in this video. It's like a viral video, and it's like about a product. And you guys do such an amazing job of conveying that, and it was still in your early days when you were still in the product development phases. So, Aaron, talk to me about how the team at Filmic thought about putting that video together, especially when it's so ahead of the product development curve. I thought that was a really ingenious move on your part.
Yeah, so backing up a little before the time when we actually created that video, when we were just trying to get the company off the ground, you know, no matter who you're talking to, whether it's a potential investor or a potential employee or anyone else, you're always pitching your idea and you're trying to sell people on your idea, whether you're physically selling them a product or not. And we found that we had a lot of trouble getting the idea of the Myo across just with words and, you know, maybe a few kind of PowerPoint slides or diagrams. People would kind of get it, but it didn't really click just with that verbal explanation of the technology. And so we realized we needed something more than that, especially for when we wanted to go and try and, you know, sell this to millions of people. And so we came up with the idea of putting together this essentially concept video that showcased a bunch of the very different applications that Myo could be used with. And you know, we felt that would be a great way to actually get across what the product is, what you can use it for, and why there's nothing else that can really accomplish what the Myo can do right now.
That's awesome. So let's go through this thought process. So you decided, okay, a video is the best way to communicate our message, and then you said, okay, I'm going to pull out my phone, I'm going to record some buddies in the office, like working with Myo, like you went after like a more professional agency. Like how did you, like, I feel like so few entrepreneurs even think about making a YouTube video related to the product in the early days, but you did. But how, can you get us into the nitty gritty of how exactly you did that, so perhaps anybody in the audience could replicate it if they're trying to develop something on their own?
So we thought about a few different, you know, possibilities, different ways of doing it. Storyboarded out a few different things, and one of the main decisions was whether to shoot something ourselves and kind of make it, you know, obviously a kind of home video kind of thing, and show some of the early prototypes and show kind of what a lot of Kickstarter videos tend to do, showing the, you know, development process and kind of where we had come from and where we're at today. And that was one option, or, you know, make a really polished, high production value kind of video showcasing at its best what Myo could be, and really, you know, make a video that would have a big impact on people. And we decided to go the second route, work with a local up-and-coming video production company to go and produce something just very, you know, visually stunning, very high energy, high impact video that would just grab people's attention and make them say, wow, you know, this is an awesome product, and start to think of all of the potential things that they could do with it as well.
That's awesome. It sounds like you put the entire city of Waterloo to work. I mean, I'm waiting for the day where we walk in like, welcome to Waterloo, home of Aaron Grant and Filmic Technologies. And so I think that's awesome. So talk to me also, like some of the stats when we were catching up the other day just really, really amazed me. You guys now have 40,000 pre-orders, is that right?
Yeah.
And when did you guys recently redesigned the armband and put it out there? So how many days has it been since you announced the redesign and the launch?
So we announced the basically final design of the consumer hardware that we'll be shipping to all of our pre-order customers later this year, and that was about 2 weeks ago. And the reception for that has been absolutely fantastic, and, you know, we couldn't be more thrilled because we spent 6 months redesigning essentially from scratch the entire Myo Armband to make it something that we're really proud of and that we think our users will love.
And it's beautiful. Like if you see the armband, you wouldn't tell if it's like a, you know, a basketball like armband, sweatband. It looks so seamless. You guys did such a good job of cutting it down and just making it look slim and sleek. So these 40,000 pre-orders have come in the past 2 weeks alone.
So these are our pre-orders, all of our pre-orders from when we launched that video. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about how did you generate so many pre-orders for this product, and give us the price point again.
So it's $149 for a pre-order.
$149 for a pre-order, and you didn't spend $1 in paid marketing.
That's correct.
So how else beyond the video did you distribute this technology? How did you get the word out?
Yeah, so I mean, the video was really the key, and then once we had that and we were happy with it, and we tested it on some people, made sure that it got the idea across and did what we wanted it to do. We reached out to just a handful of different reporters and journalists, like less than 5, and got them to agree to write a story about it. And from there, it essentially just took off. We really, we put a lot of time and effort into making sure that the video communicated what we wanted it to and how we wanted it to. And from there, we just kind of gave it a little nudge, and it went from there.
That's awesome. So talk to me also about the developer community. It sounds like you have a lot of people working on the Myo Armband to start developing new products, apps, so people can engage in many different use cases and make it their own. How have you empowered the developer community with the Myo Armband?
Yeah, so right from the beginning, we've had a very, very strong focus on developers. And our goal with the Myo is to essentially make it a platform for controlling and interacting with your software and hardware devices. And so, we have SDKs available for all the major platforms: Windows, Mac, iOS, Android. We have a very active developer community. And actually, last December, we began shipping what we call our alpha units to early developers and partners to get them, starting to work on applications and learn how they can use the technology. And we're really excited to be starting to get the final consumer hardware into the hands of a much bigger developer community starting next month.
That's awesome. So Aaron, let's talk more about the early days, and were there any mistakes you made when you look back, like, I wish we didn't distribute the product this way, maybe in hindsight we should have done something differently? Anything you would have changed in terms of getting the Myo technology out there?
Oh, I mean, everyone makes mistakes for sure. I mean, just because we had a fairly successful pre-order campaign doesn't mean that we did everything right. We obviously, this is our first time doing this. We learned a lot along the way. I think, looking back, I think the route that we went down in terms of producing the video and selling these pre-orders through our own website, I still believe that was the right decision. There are obviously little things we could have done differently. Maybe the timing wasn't perfect. Some would say we should have waited a bit longer to do this, so that our pre-order customers wouldn't be waiting for so long. But as you say, hindsight is 20/20. So.
Absolutely. And so were you thinking about developing on other sites or doing other e-commerce storefronts to take the pre-orders, and what ultimately led you guys to want to just host it yourselves?
We're big believers in controlling the whole kind of product experience, and that starts when you watch the video or go to the site for the first time, and basically the first time you hear about or see the product. And so the only way that we could really do that and make sure that people have the experience we want them to was to build that all ourselves. So that was kind of a natural way for us to go.
So let's throw aside any cliches. Let's not talk about the work it takes to distribute a product. Obviously, you put a lot of heart and sweat in putting Myo out there. What would you say to an entrepreneur or developer today who's just trying to get their product out there? What advice, what little nugget of insight can you give them that maybe you didn't realize when you were starting out?
Yeah, I think, and I mean, this applies to more than just distributing the product as well. But when you're just starting out and you have very few people, you have way more things to do than you have time. You really have to focus 100% on finding ways to be resourceful and get things done that maybe seemed kind of impossible at first, or figure out how to open doors that seemed like maybe they're a bit out of reach for now. You have to. It comes down to a lot of things. One of them is being very creative. One of them is just being gutsy enough to go out and talk to people who maybe you would think would not want to talk to you at this point, but you just try and see what happens. There's no harm in doing that. And yeah, being very creative and resourceful and trying to find ways, better ways to do things that either save time or save money or both, is really what's going to make or break you in the early days.
And I guess to bring this full circle, talking about being resourceful and saving money, how much of that video that had over 3 million hits, what was the ballpark figure of how much the video cost?
So, I can't disclose the actual amount there, but it was, one thing we did there was we found a local up-and-coming video production company who, the publicity generated would be equally valuable for them as it would for us. And by doing that, we were able to avoid some of the kind of sky-high prices that would usually be associated with producing something like this.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you look at the video, it's just so professionally made. Like it's worth every ounce of those 3 million views. And again, like I encourage you guys to check it out. It just blows you away. It sounds like it inspired a lot of users as well as your team to just move towards the vision of your product.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how you got that out there. I just want to leave the last few seconds here to you in case there's anything else you want to talk about in terms of the Myo technology and getting it out there before we open up to audience for you guys to ask any questions you may have to Aaron. So any final closing words about struggles you had or just advice to developers and entrepreneurs in the audience today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate what I just said about being resourceful. I mean, you can't say that enough. It's absolutely the key thing. I'll give a little anecdote for something we did in our early days. So one thing that's traditionally a lot more difficult with hardware than software is actually iterating and making changes and seeing those results in a short amount of time because you have to actually build the thing. And so something that we did when we were still funding the company on our personal credit cards was we kind of scoured all the local like buy and sell websites like Craigslist and everything there, and we found a guy selling a 3D printer. Who he had it in his basement. It was a big industrial grade 3D printer that would usually cost around 30 grand. And we got it for about 1/8 of the price from him there.
Wow.
And using that, we were able to make new prototypes in a day rather than waiting 2 weeks to get them back. And so it enabled us to iterate on the design much faster, almost as fast as we could do with software.
That's awesome.
And so doing things like that is what really makes the difference.
Craigslist saving the day again, I see. Awesome. So with that, we're going to open it up to you guys for questions.
Thanks. I was wondering what Distribute 2.0 looks like now that you really hit it big with sort of word of mouth marketing. What's your plan to spend your first actual dollar, or is this the plan for now? Yeah,
so right now we're focused on getting our, fulfilling the orders to the pre-order customers that we have right now, and we'll be starting to do that next month. And once we've shipped all those, we'll be moving out into retail. And with that, the wider availability of the Myo, we'll have more kind of marketing and everything around there. Can't really talk about exactly what that will look like at this time, but you can expect that later this year.
In the back.
Just had 2 questions. So the first was, when you look for team members, what did you look for in putting a team together? I think that's probably the hardest part of a startup in any company. And then the second is, how did you come up with the idea for the Myo Band?
Okay, so to answer the first question, I mean, for the founding team, myself and the 2 other founders, we had been classmates for 5 years. And I think that was, aside from being resourceful, that was probably the second key thing that has helped us get to where we are today, because we had that initial core team. We had experience working together. We had pulled all-nighters together. We had gone on trips together, lived together. And, more so than anything else, we knew that we could trust each other no matter what happened. And that's really important, especially, when it's just the 3 of you, and especially when you have to make a decision. When, say, 2 of the other founders are traveling around the world and something comes up, you have to decide immediately. We can trust that we're going to make the correct decision. And I think we were fortunate in that sense that the 3 of us already knew each other, and we were in that position. We kind of already had the team. But that's what I would look for if you're building a team from scratch. Is don't just go and find someone on the street that you just met. You definitely want people that you can trust, you have some sort of past history with. Ideally, you've done projects or worked together before or something like that. Sorry, what was the second question?
How did you come up with the idea for the Myo?
Yes, so we came up with the idea. We were thinking about these new kind of form factors of computing and where wearable tech is going, where the smartphone's going to be 5 years from now. And we realized that there's another opportunity for the way we interact with and control devices. And so, people use their hands to naturally interact with things already. You know, people are very familiar with gesturing with their hands and you know, controlling things, you know, even if it's just picking something up and putting it down or opening a door. You control things and interact with things with your hands already, and so we wanted to find a way that you could do that without having to, you know, use a vision-based method. And so that's kind of where the idea came from, was, you know, how can we control things naturally with our hands without being in front of a camera all the time.
Cool. Well, if there's no other questions, I just want to say thank you to Aaron for joining us here at I.O. and really
thank you.
appreciate your time.
It's been great.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.